So you may be wondering, Scott, what's up with the pacing of this show? How come you put out a couple in quick succession and then you wait a while and then put out some more? Well, it's because now this show, Board Games with Scott, for me is about passion. And it's about games that I feel passionate about. And so sometimes there's just not games that come across that I feel passionate about. You know, some of the big hits that we've had in the past few years, things like Kalos and Dominion and Stone Age and Race for the Galaxy and The New Endeavor. These are games a lot of people out there like, but I don't. I didn't find any passion or excitement when playing it. I think what I'm finding with games is I want to have more interaction that's going on in the game. I don't want to play a game where I just feel like I'm pushing pieces at each other. I want to actually engage with other folks. And so when I find a game then that strikes my passions, that's when I'm going to put a video together about it. So I'm not just going to put something out because, well, it's the month and you need to put something out. Instead, when I play a game and I come back and I say, that was fun, I really enjoyed that, I want to do that again, that's when I'm going to make a video. And the game I'm going to talk about on this episode was one that did exactly that. Our group played it, we loved it, we were clamoring to get it on the table again, and so we're going to talk all about Castle Panic on Board Games with Scott. Hi there, this is Board Games with Scott. This is a regular video series where I take a game and briefly explain it and review it. My goal is to help you decide if it's a game for you. I'm not trying to push you to buy these games. Don't think of it like a marketing pitch. Just think of it as me saying, you know, this is something I liked. You can take a look at it too, but I want you to make your own decision. Now, I'm going to be talking about a game this time called Castle Panic. I did get this game as a review copy, and it's a tower defense game. Now, tower defense games are a type of game that's been out in the electronic form for a few years now. And the idea is that you have a situation with one or more towers and you're trying to, or castles or some things, and you're trying to defend those things. So you defend them by setting up different defenses. And this is pretty closely aligned to a tower defense game. It's a little different, but it's also neat in that it's a cooperative game that has a winner. You've got to all work together to defend your castle, but only the person who beats up the most monsters becomes the Master Slayer. See, right there, it says it on the box. You can become the Master Slayer. Anyway, that's your job, is to become the Master Slayer, but you're only going to do that if you manage to survive the onslaught of the monsters. So it's a game that plays from 1 to 6 people. You can play it by yourself or with a big group. It takes, 45 minutes to an hour to play. And I found it to be a really enjoyable, exciting game. So without further ado, let's just get right to it. Okay, here's the board for Castle Panic. Now what's going to go on in the game is the board is split into 6 areas, and monsters are going to come on the game attempting to destroy the castle in the middle of the board. As you see in the middle of the board, you have walls and then you have towers. And if all 6 of these towers get destroyed, you lose the game. If you can survive all the monster tokens, then you win the game. There's 49 of these tokens. When you've played them all and killed them all, you win the game. If they kill all 6 of your towers, you lose the game. And the games I've played have been very, very tight. I have to commend the designers of the game. The rulebook is very well done. The order of play cards that people have is nice, and this information is also printed on the board, so you actually don't even need these cards. There's information about the boss monsters on the board. They've done a good job of making this game easy to get into and easy to find information. Now, the way it works is you've got this board in 6 segments, and the segments are in pairs. You've got the blue segment, the red segment, and the green segment, and the castle in the middle. Now, these little symbols on the outside, these are the monsters, and they're moving in, and what they want to do is they want to get in there and eat your face, or at least eat your castle. And your job is to shoot them off before they get there. Conceptually, you're all here in the middle, and you're commanding troops that are out here on the battlefield. Now, the board is also split into rings. This outer ring is the forest, and you can see what's coming, but you can't do much about it. And then as they get closer, you have troops that can reach these different levels. You have the archer ring, the knight ring, and the swordsman ring. And these correspond to cards that you're going to get in the game. So this card is a green knight card, which means it can be used to do a point of damage to a monster in the green knight ring portion here. This is a blue archer card. It can be used to damage someone in the blue archer portion. Most of the cards are like this. There's a few special cards, like this one is any color swordsman. So this means swordsman ring, but any color. There's also heroes, which work in anywhere within a color, and then there's some special cards as well. The way the game goes in your turn is you draw your hand back up, and the number of cards you have is based upon the number of players that are playing. You then can discard one of your cards and draw a new one, and then you trade cards. Now, the way the game says to play is that everyone should just put their cards face up in front of them, and then you can look around and do a trade. In most games, you can do a single trade each turn. So on my turn, I can trade one of my cards for one of someone else's cards, but no multiple trades. So you've really got to think about what's going to be effective. With a 6-player game, you can actually do more trades. But having everything face up makes it very easy to look and see what other people have so that you can work as a group on dealing with these monsters that are approaching the castle. And then you play cards. You can play as many cards as you want. If you can play your entire hand, you can do it. And you're going to damage a lot of monsters. But then you're not going to have any cards left to go around until it comes to your turn again. So if you do use all your cards, that's fine, but you're not going to be engaged with trading at that point. The way the monsters work is, this is a basic goblin. The goblin has 1 life point, which means he takes 1 hit and he's dead. The more complex orc has 2 life points. And so after he's at 2 right now, when he takes a hit, you rotate him. So you see the 1, he takes another hit, he's dead. Now you can extrapolate, students, and understand what you do with the 3 troll. 3, 2, 1, and dead. Most of the monsters are one of these 3 types: goblins, orcs, and trolls. There are a few special monsters as well. They all will have special abilities when they come on the board, and different numbers of life points. At the end of the game, only one person wins, because what goes on is you are trying to defend your 6 towers. If they all go away, you lose, but as long as one is standing, you win. And then what you do is you add up points. Goblins are worth 1 point. The more complex orcs, they're so misunderstood, are worth 2 points. The trolls are worth 3 points, and the big special monsters are worth 4 points. And that's it. You add up your points and you determine who is the Master Slayer, and they are the winner of the game. So you play your cards, you kill what you can kill, and then what you do is you move every monster that's still on the board in 1 ring towards the middle. And then you draw 2 more monsters from the bag. Now the way it'll work is you draw a monster, you roll a die, and the die tells you, you rolled a 6, where he starts in the forest and starts coming in, and that's it. Now a number of these cards in the monster stack are not monsters, but rather little tiles that will mess with you. So let's say you'd made all these plans, you were going to go next, you saw where the monsters were going to be, you had swordsmen and knights waiting, and all of a sudden you draw this tile. Green monsters move 1. What that means is all the green monsters immediately move 1 forward, completely screwing up your plans. You have things like all players discard a card, plague, swordsman, everyone loses all of their swordsman cards. Some of these tiles are pretty devastating. Some are funny. The giant boulder! When you get a giant boulder, then what you do is you roll the die. And let's say I rolled a 5, it starts at 5 and goes crush, crush, crush. It kills all the monsters and then destroys either the wall or the tower that it hits. Now when a monster gets right up to the gates here, and if you haven't killed them and they get to move again, what will happen is on the first time it hits a wall, then the monster takes a point of damage and the wall takes a point of damage. So in this case it's a goblin. He takes a point and he's dead. No one gets the points for that, but then the wall is out. And now what will happen is you get another monster that comes crumbling along, and you don't do anything about it, or you can't. Then he gets in, and the next time he comes in, he hits your tower. Now the tower goes away, and the monster takes a point of damage. Now he's a troll, and so if he was at 2, for example, now he'd go down to 1. And now what he does is every turn when he moves 1 space clockwise and just continues to destroy your towers. He does take a point of damage each time, so in this case he'd move 1 more, he'd take his last point, and the tower would go away as well. There are very few cards that can do anything about this. There are a few cards in the game that have a little castle symbol, and those are the only ones that can be used to take out someone once they're in the castle. You want to save these cards for that situation, because once a monster gets in here, if he's a big one, he can do a lot of damage very quickly. So you really want to try to avoid people getting in. Now you can rebuild the walls. If you can manage to get a mortar and a brick on your turn, you can play those 2. That lets you rebuild a wall somewhere on the board. There's also cards that will let you do things like build a brief fortification, which acts as a wall extension, so it lets you hold him off for a turn, and a little blob of tar, which lets you keep a monster from moving for a turn. There's some other special cards and things like that, but that's the basic way the game goes. So you drop your hand, you can swap out 1 card, you can then trade cards with other players, 1 card usually. You then play as much as you want, damaging the monsters that you can, killing them if you can, move all the monsters in, play 2 more. And what's going to happen is this board's going to fill up quick. Especially what will happen is when you get some of these special tiles that you weren't planning for, and then all of a sudden the game changes. Some of them like move all the monsters to space clockwise. Well, that can really screw up what color they're in, completely ruining your plans that you had traded for to get these cards to do wonderful things to the monsters. So that's pretty much it. It's a fast game, a fast-paced game. You can play it by yourself, which is neat. It captures a video game feel in a board game, and our group had just a blast playing this game. So what do I think about Castle Panic? It's a lot of fun. It takes some of the concepts of cooperative games like Pandemic and things like that, but does away with a lot of the silly rules about what information you can or can't share. You just flop all your cards down on the table. Now what that means is the game becomes a cooperative puzzle-solving game where you're saying, oh, well, you can do this and this and this, and we can do this trade. You can't do a lot of trading, but you can do a little bit. But you've always got in the back of your head, hey, I need to get the most kills. So therefore, I don't want to give away all of my good stuff. So sometimes you may see a good situation that you don't speak up about because you want to save it for you so you can get all the kills. And that element makes this very clever and different from a lot of the other cooperative games. You're not always trying to help become the most optimized team. You want to be the winner, and you need to have the group survive, so you do what that takes, and that's pretty cool. There's some other variants in the game. There's an Overlord scenario where one player actually plays the monsters intelligently. There's also a completely cooperative one where there's no Master Slayer, but I think the way it is with the one Master Slayer adds just enough of that, you know, I don't want to completely cooperate with everyone, that makes it work really well. This has a real video game feel. This goes into my category of games that are like called bait games, because you could use them to bait people away from video games, because it feels like a video game. And it's speed, it's easy to get into, it's light. This would be a great game to pull out with people who like video games to show them there's board games out there that are just as fun as engaging and have everyone looking at each other and engaging with each other. And that's what I like about this game. It brought out a lot of engagement between the players. As a side note, for this or any other episode of Board Games with Scott, if you've decided that you want to get this game because of this video, please let the publishers know. In this case, it's Fireside Games. I always put the link to that at boardgameswithscott.com because that's pretty important. That helps the publishers realize that what I'm doing makes a difference, and then they're willing to support me so that I can then support you. That's how this works. So again, if you've bought a game because of Board Games with Scott, please write the publisher and let them know. Well, if you'll excuse me, I've got some SN 2009 games to work through. We'll see if any of them get me just as passionate as this one did. And I will talk to you on another episode of Board Games with Scott. Bye-bye.